This is the Painting Business Pro Show, where we share inspiring stories from people who are just like you, who have created extraordinary results in their business and their life. We'll take the mystery out of it and show you behind the scenes exactly how these results happen. There's a simple process and a roadmap to follow to create life-changing success in business. You are capable of more than you realize. So listen in, discover what's possible, and let's unlock your potential. Let's go. Yo, Jordan, glad to be doing this with you. So before we get into the business plan, reviewing last year, talking about next year, why don't you tell me what you want to get out of this call?
So I started with Painting Business Pro in probably April this year, and just had a pretty slow start to the year, and that was what made me kind of reach back out. And since diving into it, ever since April, we've just hit uh, better numbers, better tracking, better everything. Everything's gotten consistently better. But I know we're still not where we want to be. The profit margin and everything is decent, but I know it's not quite where I need to be in order to be able to expand our team, hire salesmen,
Yep.
kind of get to that next phase of team building and whatnot. So that's the biggest thing that I want to improve going into next year is just being ready at a good, healthy place to get a team in place so I can step out of even more of the day to day of sales and stuff like that and just be more in a coaching role on that.
Awesome. And it sounds like you've got some clarity on that. So what do you think is the biggest thing I can help with?
Well, as I was looking at just kind of where we were with everything, one thing that I became very obvious is I think I need to get better at sales, our estimating and everything. Our percentages on labor and material was pretty high. It was, I think about 60, a little over 60%, I think.
Okay.
So that's, one area that I need to improve on.
So one thing I'm hearing is just validate. Basically, one thing is validation on what you think your plan should be to make sure that'd be the first thing,
Yeah,
because it sounds like you've got some assumptions and some hypothesis on what you should focus on.
right.
Have you taken a crack at building a business plan for next year or setting any goals yet?
No, I just, when I saw you were looking for some people, I was like, oh yeah, I need to start doing that. So I have not
Perfect.
set any goals for next year yet.
All right, great, man. Well, let's just dive in then. So, first we'll look back at this year, and we want to two things, and this is going to be pretty high level because it really should be.
Hmm.
At the stage almost everyone in Painting Business Pro is at, right, where it's under a couple million a year. You only need a couple focuses per year. Your business plan should be fairly unexciting, because you should, that's what I was just talking with Grace about. She's like, why would I only aim for 500? That seems like a done deal. I'm like, yeah, well,
Yeah,
but it'd be still really healthy growth. And it doesn't mean you're not going to do more than that. So it should be kind of unexciting and
yeah,
predictable. And I can hit that because you should be able to see 30 to 35% growth or 50% growth on a business
hmm,
while it's still pretty easily. And so let's
yeah.
just aim for that. And then if we go beyond that, great.
Okay.
So the business plan itself, the numbers, the sales plan, production plan should be pretty unexciting and predictable because
Yeah,
that's what we want in a business plan.
yeah, right.
And then the strategic plan, what should I focus on improving? The big mistake everybody makes is they try to do too many things
Okay.
and don't give themselves enough time to do any one thing. And so and I've learned this the hard way myself because I've overcommitted. I try to do too many things in too short a timeline. And it's taken years for me to realize you can only do a couple things really well at a time and they take longer than you think.
Yeah,
Knowing that, your strategic plan should be quarter one, you're doing this, quarter two, you're doing this, quarter three, you're doing this. And for a lot of people, it's a little uncomfortable to plan so little. For
yeah,
Grace, it was uncomfortable for her to set a goal that she knows she's going to hit. And for some people, it's wait, but if that's all I'm going to do, I think I can do more. Let's just move this stuff up. It's like, if we only plan like a thing per quarter and like do it nice and slow, if you get
Yeah.
ahead of the plan, you can move things up.
Yeah.
You
Makes
can move
sense.
things up. The bigger mistake people
Yeah.
make is they overcommit and then they operate from a place of being overcommitted and, take shortcuts, stress out, panic, and so on.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that makes sense.
all
So
right.
one thing like I've never really done when planning for the next year is
Yeah.
like breaking things down per quarter and like having a different plan for each quarter, other than like obviously like sales targets and things like that, like
Yep.
number of estimates
Right.
expected. Is that what you mean, or do you mean like
We'll get into both. Yeah. So I
okay,
think of it like the business plan is the numbers, the
yeah,
strategic plan is the projects or initiatives.
okay,
So a project or initiative is going to be like the roadmap. Like, we need to implement our estimating system. We need to, get better at sales this month. Like,
yeah,
what are you
yeah, yeah,
doing to work on the business? And then the
yeah,
business plan itself is just the numbers, sales
okay,
plan, leads, estimates, jobs booked, total sales, revenue produced, profitability per production, the budget and financial management. That's the business plan, and we
yeah,
want to manage that because let's get into it.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
sounds good.
all right, so we'll look at let's look at the new one quick, just so I can make the point. And this, of course, isn't just for you. This is for everybody.
Hmm.
All right, so if we think about the business plan part, Jordan,
Hmm.
the way to think about this is the whole point of being in business is create freedom, and we want financial freedom, and we want freedom of our time. And uh, the point of a business is to make money. And so that's why we always start with the budget is we set some revenue target. That's the first thing is
Hmm.
we got to hit the revenue, but then it's how much money do we make on every dollar of revenue? Every dollar of revenue we do, what's our gross profit? So our profit after the variable expenses. So that's this number right
Hmm.
here. So first we need to hit the revenue number. Then we need to hit the profitability on that revenue, on the gross profit. And then we have
Hmm.
all this overhead. So we need to hit
Right.
all of this overhead because if we overspend on that, that messes up our bottom line. And then we need
Hmm.
to make sure we spend enough money on marketing to hit the sales targets to hit the top line. And that's how we get to our bottom line. And so ultimately this is the goal. This bottom line net profit number is the goal. And so how do we once we map that out, then how do we hit the goal? Well, this first part is our sales plan and our production plan. How do we get the leads, the estimates, sell the jobs, and produce the jobs to hit that number? The job cost cards and the profitability on every job fills this in. Overhead is kind of fixed at the beginning of the year. Like you're just going to track it every month and adjust. And then
Hmm.
marketing is pretty fixed. Like just the biggest mistake everybody makes on marketing is they don't spend enough. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't even remember a time I've coached a painting business pro member who had like a $40,000 marketing budget and then spent more. Almost universally, people have a $40,000 marketing budget, but only spent 20 grand. And they wonder why they didn't hit their
Interesting.
targets. You just didn't
Hmm.
spend enough. So that's really the
Yeah.
the plan part. And then we'll look at the roadmap is really like the learning and the projects and like which of these things are you doing every quarter. Let's look at your 2024. And that's all clear to you, right? Just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
fundamentals. I mean, this
Yeah.
is a really simple business plan. We make the financial plan first, and we make a sales and marketing plan to hit the top number, production plan to hit the top number, job cost cards to hit the variable costs. You track your overhead monthly to make sure that's on track,
Hmm.
and that's how you get to your bottom line.
Yeah.
So, and then once we've made that plan, we just check it every week throughout the year to make sure it's on track, to make sure we're going to make our number. Versus with no business plan, what people basically end up doing is work really hard. There's money in the account, I take it out. There's not money in the account, I work hard to get money in the account, take it out, and then at the end of the year, I find out how much I made. Versus like
Yeah.
you can plan it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you're looking good here. So you have a project manager right now.
I have a project manager. He's actually, well, I did. He's actually finishing this month and then he's moving on to something else. So
Okay. So we'll need to
I'm,
rehire that.
yeah, gonna need to rehire that. And,
Okay.
but yeah.
Excellent, man. Um, okay, so you're well under 10% marketing and you're hitting your
Hmm.
targets and subs. When you say they're happy with your prices, it says in progress. Can you tell me more about that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I probably need to update that. Like toward the beginning of the year, we just had some back and forth with a few subs. I mean, they were overall happy enough, and then since then, there's not really been any complaints or anything.
Well,
So
it's updated then. Done.
yeah,
Great.
there we go.
And then this part here where it says you're selling jobs at a 50% profit margin. Are you
Yeah.
doing that now?
Well, that's what I was kind of seeing was not kind of hitting the mark there. The way we've been doing things, and so okay, yeah, with the job cost cards, I actually like have been just kind of filling in monthly what we've been doing because I started way late on that
Okay.
tab. Um, so this is monthly, like what we've received in cash collected, what we've
Okay.
paid for each thing. So we are actually paying for all the material, which is not, that's
Yep.
different
Yep.
than what the course recommends and whatnot.
Yep.
But that's just kind of what we've worked out with some of our subs. So that's where I feel like we're overspending. Um,
You're not. I mean, 15% spent on materials is
it's
pretty
pretty normal.
accurate. That's
Okay.
about what the amount's going to be on materials. Think of it more like the total is what's being overspent.
Okay.
Um, but let me just take a look. So if I'm going to delete these momentarily, and then just because that's it, the
Oh yeah.
cost isn't in there yet, so it's
Right.
messing up the gross.
Yep.
Do you actually pay sales commission, or is that all? Um,
Um, no, I actually just deleted all that out because that was just an autofill.
okay. Oh,
So
I
I
see.
deleted that out
You
because
put
that
that
was
up.
just
Yep.
I'm the only salesperson. So
Okay. All right. I just want to take off production management, labor, quick, and okay, just materials isn't in there yet. Is that
right.
correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So I'm going to take these off too, just to see what you were at. So yeah, you're at 35%, which is there's nothing to do except fix that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because then the material goes up to about 18. Subcontractor payout is
Mm-hmm.
mid 40s. So
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right, great. So we go back to roadmap stuff. And by the way, it's actually probably a really good thing that, I mean, it's not a good thing, but timing wise, losing your project manager and then fix this and then bring a new PM in, it's really hard
yeah,
to fix that stuff with current project managers. They'll get hung up feeling
right.
like we're not paying the subs as much but you're going to actually raise your price.
Yeah,
If you're going to pay people
yeah,
less, you need to raise your price.
right.
Okay. So yeah, so this is like number one. There's really two things. Number one, it's increased price to hit 50%. And then number two,
Hmm.
fixed sub payment to include material. That's just it's going to create, and we can talk about these on a coaching webinar if you want
Okay.
to
Yeah.
dig in. We won't want to get into all that today, but
Hmm.
how do I increase pricing? I mean, this is literally an equation essentially. Because what are you
Hmm.
doing to? How are you pricing? How are you estimating right now, Jordan?
Um, it's kind of an adapted model off of what is in the course and like what I used to do. So it's kind of a hybrid of that. It's
Is
all
it
based on a
is it
formula, square footage.
okay? So it is a measurement based estimating system.
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially, all you're going to need to do is it's just going to be a calculation where, we're going to take this job cost card and we're going to say, okay,
Hmm.
um, you can just add up the total cost. So material plus, well, you just take 102 plus 17 plus 310 and the rep and then determine and then double it and be like, that's what
Hmm.
I should have charged.
Okay.
And then you take let's say it was 800 is what you should have charged. Then
Okay.
you take 800. Then you just adjust your markup so that your new $7,000 price would be 8,000.
Okay. Yeah, that
That's
makes sense.
right. It's
Yeah.
like
And
really simple. All you're changing. You're not changing how you estimate production rates. The only thing you're changing is
yeah.
your markup because you're just not marking up enough. On 700,000 is probably going to be it's going to be around 750, probably 750 for you on the year. That
Hmm.
that 15% of margin is $100,000 in profit.
Gotcha.
And
Makes
that's
sense.
that's the most important. I mean, if you change nothing next year, if all you
Yeah.
did was change that,
Just fix the margin.
fix the margin, and then what likely happens is when people increase price, sales goes down. So when you increase price, you go work on sales a little bit.
Hmm.
and you should end up with like about the same because you might lose another job, but also your average job size goes up.
Yeah, that
And
makes
so
sense.
whatever drop in sales, it gets made up for by improving your sales and by the increased job size. Like
Yeah.
what you would end up doing, what would end up happening is you would produce fewer jobs next year for the same revenue and make an extra
Right.
100K in profit. And
That's
if that was
crazy.
the only change you made between now and next year,
Yeah.
that's the only change. That's a there's nowhere else in the world where you can go and just give yourself $100,000 raise for doing less work.
No, that's crazy.
So that's what you want to do is that, and it's an
Yeah.
equation to increase your margin, your price. Once you've
Right.
done that, the other thing is I can walk through with you how to have the conversations with your crews so that they can take over handling the material.
Okay.
It's going to just create more efficiency for them and for you,
Hmm.
especially before you bring on your next PM.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I don't know if this would have affected, I mean, well, it definitely would have affected a little, but in the job cost stuff, we had a sub for a couple months in the summer who cost us a bit of revenue as well,
Hmm.
that we were still had already paid out like material and labor on.
Hmm.
So that too is like, got the percentages off a little bit too. So
Yep.
we no longer are working with him, but that's changed some things too.
Cool.
That's impacted that. So
All right,
probably
great.
not a significant percentage, but
But you just do, yeah. So
yeah,
that's
but
good.
that's the main thing. I get that.
And okay, so I mean, right now, I would just do these two things in quarter four.
Okay.
Like I would do that so that January 1, you can just like you can go straight into hiring the PM.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
And I think if you got a CRM in place but no estimating software, you can call this one done. Those are
Okay.
usually separate systems anyway.
Okay.
And then I would put this sales back to in progress until your pricing is at the right margins. Because
Okay.
anyone can sell 45% of estimates if
Yeah.
I do it for
If
free.
if the margins are right, right.
Yeah. So I would do that. And then I wouldn't do underspending on marketing. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
You're hitting those. You're only
Okay.
underspending on marketing if you're not hitting your lead and estimate goal
Okay.
and you're at 10%, right? So, and I
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
that's the case. I think right now, the bottleneck, the number one issue for you is profitability.
Right.
And then the second thing is you need to get that PM hired because you're at you're at the consistent revenue where you can't do it.
Right. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like this is quarter four, focus on sales after increasing price.
Okay.
Um, and increase price and fix the payment to subs. Like do that in Q4.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then uh, quarter one, 2025 is going to be recruit and hire an EPM.
Okay.
And then you don't really need to worry too much about what comes after that because then the next thing is going to be I just want to make sure I'm selling really consistent. Like you want to be able to do like a whole quarter of like I'm selling really well. Marketing is consistent, sales is consistent, production's consistent, quality is good, PM is trained. And you want to
Hmm.
maintain that long enough to say, hey, how much more could my project manager handle? And then the next hire will be a sales rep at some point, or maybe
Gotcha.
an office manager, depending on your preference.
Okay.
So this will be like quarter 2 to 3, 2025 is a office and a sales person.
Okay.
But I wouldn't
So
rush
not even worrying about the sales rep right now, but just focusing on profitability and then training a PM.
getting your PM really, really solid
Yeah.
because if we go, so let's go look at your sales numbers. So we've got a baseline for building the next year. Um, all right. So this is when you started with PVP,
Yeah.
right?
That's
So
what
that's
I,
why this
yeah.
is okay. And um, so you actually did sell more than this. It just wasn't all. You had some
Right.
two hundred
Yeah.
thousand or something sold before then.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So let's just look at these numbers. So I'm gonna just look at the last 2 quarters. So 172 leads, and 145 estimates. Where are you getting most of your business right now?
Mostly from our website and realtor connections.
Okay, so it's mostly very warm warm leads. Wow, you have quite a low job size. Your job size is only 3,000. A little less, slightly more than that. Just in the
Yeah.
last 2 quarters, at least. I've got
Right.
308,000 sold on 94 jobs booked on 145 estimates done on 172 leads. So uh, your lead conversion right now is 85%, which is really good. That will go down when you start expanding into colder marketing. Your sales
Okay.
rate, 94 divided by 145, is 65%, which you absolutely can sell 65% as the business owner on cold on anything. But
Hmm.
again, a lot of that's referral that drives that up. Your website is
Right.
really strong. So you're probably at like 90% from realtors and
Yeah.
85% on referrals and then 50% on your website or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's going to be like a hard thing about raising your price is you have people who refer you business and are used to your lower prices. And do you have any fear or concern about those relationships when you increase your price?
Not the realtor relationships, for sure. I think there's probably like a handful of people that, there might be a little concern with that, but not, I don't feel like it's a large enough percentage that I'm like worried about what happens to our business or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Well, anyone who is worried about that, I can pretty easily to show you why you shouldn't be worried about that. Because if we look at a budget and we have 100% revenue, 50% goes to market. Well, in this case, these realtors, if they're priced wrong, it's like, oh,
Hmm.
65% goes out for labor and materials and workers' comp. So I've got
Hmm.
35% left. A really healthy business makes about 20% net profit. Once you have the sales rep hired, production manager hired, you're spending on marketing, like 20% net profit is really healthy.
Hmm.
But if my cost of that my gross cost, my variable cost is at 65% instead of 50, then now I'm making like 5% profit. So essentially
Gotcha.
you'd be keeping those relationships for free. You'd be doing that work for free once
Yeah.
you build the business. And you're doing that work for free once you have other people doing it. But that means the only way to make money on it is if you're doing it. And now you don't own a
Right.
business, you own a job. And if you want
Yeah.
to do it that way, you can, but it's just really limiting. It's not gonna
Right.
be building a business that really gives you freedom.
Yeah. 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 That
And it's
makes
not a
sense.
business you can sell. It's not a business other
Yeah.
people would buy. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
go buy a job. I can get a
Right.
job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I
Yeah.
know you're clear about
Yeah.
that for other
Yeah. That
people.
makes sense.
Where do you live, Jordan? Where are you guys based out of?
Just north of Cincinnati,
Okay.
Ohio. Yep.
So yeah, your job size at 3276. Um, if we just do some quick sloppy math here,
Yeah.
3276 times 0.65, you're paying out about 2100 per job. So if we double that, you should be charging about 4200,
Okay.
which is really so. If you do change
Yeah.
this in Q4, your new job size should be 4200 and maybe even a smidge more,
Yeah.
maybe 43.
Gotcha.
And if
Yeah.
Yep.
No, go ahead.
Well, and if it's 4300, that's going to change, it's going to change a lot of the numbers in a really healthy way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm wondering too if like some of those numbers seem kind of low. I mean, that's why we track it, I guess. But I'm wondering if I have missed some things along the way because I thought I was tracking at one point like more of along the lines of like 4,500 or so, but um, might have been like just a couple months or something like that I was looking at. I don't know,
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure either. Just yeah,
but
the so we could also look at it like
yeah.
455,000 divided by 137 jobs in here.
Okay.
So it's 455 divided by 137 is 3,300 to 11.
Yeah.
So it's 33 to
Yeah.
1. Yeah, 3321.
Gotcha.
Sorry. So yeah, it's very. I mean, just what's in here, which
Yeah,
probably
that
is
makes
fairly
sense.
accurate.
Yeah. And that makes sense because some of the realtor jobs too, like to
Yeah, I know.
maintain the relationship, you're just doing small things to get a house ready to sell or whatever. So that's probably dragging down the average too.
And there will be a point, yeah, and that would make sense why you're not at 5,000 because you probably should be up to
Yeah.
5,000 because once you say, hey, I'm not going to do jobs under 1,500, they're just gone and
Mm,
it just moves things up. And you'll
yeah.
there will be a point where it makes sense to do that.
Yeah. Gotcha.
If we look at your residential plan or your production plan, this is really steady and good. Um, and then we already looked at your job cost card. So there's not really anything else to look at from last year. We can just go and kind of project out this next year.
Hmm.
The one thing that's worth mentioning is that you're going to do about 750. Um,
Well,
and
that's just the residential too. So the total production,
yeah,
um,
850. It's more
yeah,
likely. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Cool. All right. So let's take a look at 2025 now and just take like an initial crack at this thing. So I'll let you I'll share this with you when we're done, and I'll let you
Hmm.
move over the notes I just made on your 2024 roadmap to this one,
Okay.
because that just moves right over. We're also going to send you some updated Painting Business Pros, so use
Okay.
this as like just something you're playing tinkering with, but then you'll need to update the other one. But
Sounds
we'll get
good.
those out, I think, by the 1st of December, if not sooner.
Cool.
All right, so let's start with your budget. Um, I mean, I would just start with 850,000 because that's what you
Okay.
did last year. And if all
Hmm.
you do is improve the margins, you're in great shape. And
Yeah.
if you can fix those before the end of the year, so next year just starts clean,
Yeah.
then you've got 48,
Yeah.
48% there and 2% there, and that's it. Um, in the event that because we're gonna build this where it's like, all right, it's just you and a production manager, and we'll just move the PM. I'll put the production manager down here because I think production
Hmm.
managers are usually they don't vary directly with production unless you're paying
Hmm.
them as commission. But a lot of times, a good production compensation plan is a base plus some bonuses,
Okay.
and so it might be like 75,000. Just goes down here because they,
Gotcha.
I mean, you kind of got to pay at least like 65, 70K to get someone good.
Yeah.
And that's going to be more than 6% of here. But then
Okay.
you also don't need then you can set up some bonuses so that if you do go to like 1.2 million, it doesn't really change your overhead much, but it really increases your profitability because you could probably pay that person
Yeah.
a $10,000 bonus for another 400K produced.
Gotcha.
Something like that.
So back up at the top,
Yep.
with the 48% being subcontractor employee, that's assuming they're buying material, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That'd be if you've completed those things at the end of this
So
year.
like 48% is the goal then, not the 50%?
Well, I would pay them if they have
Deal
their
is
own
just,
workers' comp.
oh, I guess because
Not
of
paying on
insurance.
that, then I pay them
Oh,
50.
gotcha.
But if they don't and I've got to cover them, then I'll pay less.
I see what you're saying.
So
Okay. I
we're
missed
at
that.
50% to subcontractor
Okay.
material workers comp.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And I'm gonna bounce back in between these things. So I know my screen. You can't see what I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at your 2024. Um, and it looks like vehicle is pretty minimal. So
Hmm.
you're going to end up around 10K. So I'm just going to put 10K in there for now. You'll want to make this more accurate
Yeah.
based on last year. And
Okay.
then overhead, you've got your management wages. These all look like they're about on par. I don't think it should change much from last year, your overhead.
Okay.
So I'll just put that in here too. I just copied over from last year. Now you'll want to get
Gotcha.
these all more dialed in as well. And then marketing, you had budgeted 22. You spent 34 so far. Um, I would just plan on probably 50,000, 60,000 to be safe. Um, and it leaves you 300K in profit.
Gotcha.
So I would start with this is the plan. And
Hmm.
by what you're trending for this year is, I mean, even the plan for 2024 was 150 in profit. Um,
Yeah.
just because of the margins, you know?
Right. That's crazy that just fixing the margins doubles my salary. Like,
Yeah, you're gonna double your income and you're gonna do it with less jobs because the job
yeah.
size goes up by 30%, 25%. But your
Right.
sales isn't gonna drop by that amount.
Right.
Yeah, it's just not gonna. And then you're gonna actually have more margin to like deliver better work. All
Hmm.
right. So, and I think
Yeah.
I
That's
honestly, I
crazy.
think Jordan, you're gonna exceed this.
Hmm.
Um, so let's move on and see how you can now.
Okay.
And then halfway through the year, if you're like hitting the plan and you're like, and I can exceed these weekly targets, great. You can bump it up to 1 million. So
Yeah.
it's better to build a plan that you're going to bump up than a plan you're going to fall short and come down because
Right.
it costs a lot.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of backwards to how I've done it in the past. Like shot for a bigger number and then
How everyone does
falling
it.
short of it. Yeah. Makes
So everyone
sense.
does it and it's costly. All right, so
Yeah.
let's look at your business plan here. If you don't really put a lot of effort into commercial, how much commercial work will you get next year?
Probably about 100,000.
All right, so let's just assume 100,000. So we're just going to make your production or your sales plan for 775.
Okay.
Average job size, I'm going to bump up to 4,200 because you're going to make that change. Lead conversion will move to 65%, down from 85 because when you start, well,
Yeah.
you're not going to do a lot of new marketing, so we'll lower it just a little.
Okay.
Your sales rate was 65%, so I think let's just drop that to 50
Okay.
to be safe and just say 50 all year. If I look back at your sales plan from last year, and everyone, listen, this is why it's valuable to track your numbers, is you can actually see like percentage wise, how much did you can start to see your historical data to say how much more do
Yeah.
I typically do in Q1, Q2, Q3, so you can plan accordingly. But I'd imagine you're probably somewhere around like 18%, like it's a little slower in the first quarter. Is that what you've
Yeah.
seen?
Yeah, for sure.
And then you have a pretty busy next two
Quarter
quarters.
two is, yeah, usually our biggest. Quarter two and quarter three.
Yeah. And so it might be like something like this.
Hmm.
Um, I think ours is usually Q2 is usually a little bigger than Q3.
Hmm.
Um, so that all checks out. So what this looks like is 8 leads a week, 6 estimates done, and 3 jobs booked for 11K.
Okay.
That's Q1, and that's you've been doing more than that. Your average sales per week this quarter has been 13. So I think that's very doable.
Hmm.
And then it bumps up quite a bit in quarter two and quarter three, which actually is a good way for you to build this plan, Jordan, because you're going to spend quarter one recruiting and training your new PM,
Yeah.
and you're going to be doing some production. By
Right.
quarter two, you jump up to 14 leads a week, 10 estimates, and 5 book jobs for 21.
Okay.
And then from here, it's going to be it starts to be kind of hard for you to probably do much more than that. I mean, I'm even looking back at your year in Q3 this year, you were averaging 9 estimates a week
Hmm.
and, selling 5 jobs for 16K. So you're going to basically be doing the same thing, just the job size is going to be higher
Makes sense.
and your profitability is going to be a lot more. And so I don't think there's going to be a ton of room for you to grow from here um, until you hire someone else. And so you want to get Q1, it's the PM, and then Q2, it's like just keep this steady with you in the PM. And this is going to
Okay.
be a good time to jump on a webinar with me and just be like, hey, what changes should I make right now? Because you probably could look at we could do some diagnosing here and say, hey, how do we make it so you're closing 6 out of 10 and get the job size to 5K?
Hmm.
Because if you can go six, and the way we're going to do that, Jordan, is you're going to spend a lot more on marketing. When you spend more on
Okay.
marketing, you can say, I'm going to do a minimum job size.
Yeah.
And so my lead conversion, lead to estimate will drop. So instead of converting 85%, you're only going to convert 65%. but the average job you're bidding is 5K now instead of 4K.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're booking 25,000 a week instead of 20, same amount
Yeah.
of work.
Gotcha. And that's
And
just mostly increasing marketing there.
it's going to be mostly increasing marketing and then
Mm-hmm.
implementing some kind of minimum job size.
Gotcha.
There are some ways you can, and then you might still, I mean, you're good at sales, like you might still get to 60%. So if you can be selling 6 out of 10,
Yeah.
for 5K, you're selling 30K a
Right.
week, and over 12 weeks, now you exceed target by 120. And you do that again in the
Yeah.
last quarter, you exceed target by 250. And then we go over to the budget, and it's like you could end up at 1.1 million. And that extra 300 or that extra 250,000 is at 50%. An extra 120K, and all of a sudden your bottom
That's
line could be
crazy.
400 grand.
Okay.
Right. So we're
Right.
looking for like the smartest way to do this, not the muscle way.
Yeah.
And so there is going to be this point, you're going to have this decision to make, where you don't want to rush it, but it's like, man, do I just want to like keep selling myself and just have a nice $330,000 profit year and have my production manager really well trained?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I want to try to hire someone? And honestly, this quarter, you can probably exceed those numbers too. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you're going to
6
smash.
estimates a week.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
think you'll smash those, especially if you have a production manager and you do it full time. Like,
Right.
so this plan is definitely set up where you can exceed it by quite a bit. And if you do
Mm-hmm.
exceed it, it just goes, that profit drops straight to the bottom line.
Gotcha.
You will have a decision to make after like Q2 to say, hey, like, how's my production manager doing? How smooth is all of this? Do I want to go and start hiring for a sales rep or an office manager this year? Or do I want to just kind of cruise to the end of the year and hire both of them to start 2026? But
Okay.
you are going to be looking at then 2026, like a reasonable plan is going to be like 1.3, where you're not doing any more sales or production. So it'll be like 1.3, 400K profit, 350 profit, but you're not really involved anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a time of the year that's you would recommend hiring a salesman? Like, is it harder to hire a salesman like in the middle of like between quarter 2 and 3 where things are a lot busier and it's kind of like throwing them to the wolves, or is it
No.
still just like same process and everything? It's just a
Yeah.
busier time.
Yeah. That's the most, when it's time to hire a salesperson or a production person or whatever, when it's time to hire that person, that is the most valuable thing you can do for your business. So you
Mhm.
should make the time for it. So
Gotcha.
you're never too busy to do the most
Even if
important thing.
even if it takes away from the number hitting the number of
Yeah.
estimates, like to
Yeah.
make time for it, just to yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
It's not going to cost you much over, if you carve
Right.
out a half a day a week, it's like, all right, that's
Yeah.
3 less estimates I do for 6 weeks for
Yeah.
recruiting. It's 18 estimates on the year. But once I've hired that person, it adds 15 estimates a week in additional capacity.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
You're caught up by week 10 and then you're
Yeah.
ahead by week 11.
Yeah.
So it's really short-sighted to
Gotcha.
do that.
So once you hire salesmen, like you just spend more on marketing, basically, right? Like, I
Mhm.
mean, it's just got to kind of happen in tandem so that we
The
can,
very
because the
Yes,
capacity is greater.
that's right. So you're going to have a production manager in Q1, hire train PM Q1. Q2,
Hmm.
it's probably like keep training PM and just run the business healthy.
Yeah.
Q3, recruit a sales rep,
Yeah.
possibly, and then Q4, it's like marketing. So every time
Yeah.
you hire a salesperson, the very next thing you've got to do, or you got to do simultaneously, is I got to get better at marketing
Gotcha.
because I need to feed the sales team,
Yeah.
and that's where like you don't have to be very good at marketing under $1 million a year, but you will have to start getting good at marketing to get to $1 million to $2 million to $3 million, because you can do $3 million a year on 25 estimates a week. And then, I've noticed that if you want to get up to like 5 million a year, you have to become really good at marketing. You
Gotcha.
can't just hire it away.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you have to get involved in it. I just did a podcast recently with Mason about,
Hmm.
spray. He's doing 8.5 million, but he's doing it because he started to really dedicate himself to mastering marketing. And I
Yeah.
know for my partners, Ben and Hunter, are doing 6-7 million plus now. Like, marketing was a problem until we dedicated sufficient resources to getting good at it.
Yeah.
And we tried to just hire people, hire vendors,
Yeah.
hire a marketing. I had a whole marketing department, fired them all. So there will be like trailing a sales rep is always marketing.
Gotcha. But that's what you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, is like that's not my focus like
No,
between now and quarter one, quarter two even. It's
no,
just
because right now you're already
yeah,
doing 10 estimates a week. What you're doing is
yeah,
hitting those numbers.
right.
It,
You
it,
just gotta
it's
make it
only a
more
focus if
profitable.
you're missing the targets in the business plan.
Gotcha.
And Jordan, just so you know too, like this would be for anyone listening or for you. I'm curious, like, what questions do people have about this plan? Because this is if we were business partners, we do the same thing.
Hmm.
If you were a partner in National Painting Group, we would do
Yeah,
this. We would make the same business plan. The thing we would do differently is we would be more involved with recruiting and training your people. So that would shorten the time that takes, and we would be more involved
I
with the
gotcha.
marketing. So we would just like speed that process up. So we
Yeah.
would probably hire and train a PM in Q1, and we probably go straight to the sales rep in Q2.
Oh,
Right. So
okay.
we can just condense the timeline,
Yeah, yeah,
but you don't want to condense the timeline because you got to make sure it's good. We just that's so anyways, it's still the
right.
same process of doing things in order. And you could
Yeah,
condense the timeline if you're doing it like really well and your PM is rocking. It's just hard
yeah,
to know that without like we know we've got like the systems in place to guarantee that. And
right,
you don't have the system in place to guarantee it. So you kind of
right.
need to see, is this guy actually solid for a quarter? Because what you
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
want to do is hire the PM and be like, okay, he's hired and he's going. Now, like, hurry and hire the sales. And then you have
yeah,
sales, and then PM drops. And now you're like, that guy's selling, but I'm producing, but I'm trying to recover. And you don't want to get behind like that.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you're better off going slow because you are going to screw some things up. And
yeah,
with hiring and training people. And you're less likely to screw things up if you dedicate more time and patience to getting it right.
yeah. Yeah,
So
that
it's
makes
like
sense.
when people try to rush on their own, when they try to rush, you don't give you're more likely for that production manager or that hire to fail, and it creates an even bigger problem.
Yeah,
And just coaching people for a long time on this, it's like the
yeah,
people who rush do
right.
things twice, and doing things twice slows down growth.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense because I also don't have the experience with hiring and training. Like I've done it one time, like
Yeah.
so I don't have as smooth of a system of
Yeah.
like this is what I'm looking for, this is how I train them, like the whole deal. Like I know what I did last time and ways I'll improve that, but that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what's funny too
Yeah.
is I've noticed is like when you're doing it like slow and steady in the right way, it feels really slow and it literally can feel uncomfortable. Like
Mm,
I'm falling behind, like I should be moving faster. Like it's a strange thing that it feels so normal to be stressed out that when you're not,
mm,
it feels uncomfortable. But it would be a
yeah.
good sign if your business is hitting the numbers on the business plan and you're not stressed out and you feel like on top of it, that's a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm telling you, man, it
That's
does feel
funny.
weird to people. Like I should be
Yeah.
in this kind of high strung,
Hmm.
like go, go, go mode. I'm like, that doesn't,
Yeah.
why? It's
Yeah.
just, anyways, it's something to look out for though.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
What
Yeah.
questions do you have, man?
I mean, I think just some questions just along the lines of what you were saying we could talk about on a webinar or something of just getting getting the margins right, getting increasing the prices without
Yep.
worrying too much about losing jobs because I'm going to lose more jobs. Like I know that's going to be like a little bit of a mental thing for a while because I'm used to selling a certain number of jobs and I'm also used to like I've got the feel for how much a job should be. So then when it comes out, like the calculation comes out at a higher number, it's
Yep.
going to be hard to save, I feel like, for a while.
Yep.
Um, so,
Well,
yeah, I mean,
what you can go back to on that is looking at the business plan.
mhm,
This can kind of ground you because all you need is
yeah,
8 estimates, 6 books. We've lowered the sales rate already.
right.
We've actually even lowered the leads and you've got room to spend on marketing. I even bumped up your marketing budget for the year, even though you're
Yeah.
You shouldn't need it.
Yeah.
So it's like, just come back to like, I just need 8 leads, 6 estimates, 3 booked a week for 11K.
Yeah.
And so I think if you keep coming
Yeah.
back to that, like that's it. Because
Right.
those old prices aren't going to build a healthy business. Um,
Yeah.
and you had a feel for what you've always priced, but it wasn't a feel for what it should be priced.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. No, that makes sense. And yeah, just seeing like, okay, selling 3 jobs a week, like that feels very attainable. Like it doesn't feel as daunting, like
Yeah.
when you think of it that way versus, whatever else.
And looking at this plan, like, don't you feel like, yeah, I can hit every one of those numbers, and I
Hmm.
probably can exceed it in quarter one, and I probably can exceed it in quarter four.
Yeah.
So we've built a plan that
Yeah.
you feel like, yeah, I can totally hit that, and there's lots of ways I could exceed it.
Hmm.
And the only
Yeah.
real thing you need in your strategic plan is what we put on there on your 2024 to get ready for next year, and then it's recruiting that PM in Q1.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
pretty small like demand on you to
Right.
essentially double your profit and have a much stronger foundation for hiring the
Yeah.
office manager and sales rep and moving up to like 1.3 the next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
That
know,
makes
so
sense. Yeah.
you're
It's really
15
just
months
one thing
away.
I've got to, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I mean, yeah, it's just like one thing to work on to like have a huge increase
Yeah,
in,
that's how it
yeah.
should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're about 15 months away from not doing the day to day and making 300 plus a year.
Gotcha.
You
So
know,
like,
just
but
to put that in
like
perspective.
going into 2026 is what you're
Yeah.
saying. Like just if I work on this one thing, get
By
a PM
quarter
in
two,
place.
if you
Yeah.
don't, if all you did is like what we just said for Q4, right? It's
Hmm.
like fix your margins, fix your, payouts.
Yeah.
Q1 and just really all next year, just hire and train a
Yeah.
PM. That's all you do next year.
Yeah.
Hire and train a PM and hit these numbers.
Yeah.
Then the next year in Q1 and 2, it's office manager and sales rep.
Yeah.
Then by quarter 3 of 2026, so 18 months, 19 months from now,
Hmm.
you'll have created a business that you don't do the estimates, you don't manage the projects, and you don't answer the phone, and you make 350 a year.
Gotcha.
Your main job becomes marketing and supporting those 3 people now.
Hmm.
You'll be working less, and now you've created this leverage where like, okay, now I could add another PM, add another sales rep and do more marketing, and now I can be making essentially working the same still 15, 20 hours a week, but be making 5,
Yeah.
600K. One
Yeah.
year after that. So you kind of keep that in mind because when we're doing this, it feels like it's going really slow.
Hmm.
It will feel slow because you're only doing like one thing
Yeah.
all year and you feel like you should do more.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, if 30 months from now, 2 years from now, um, you're set up to make 500-600K working part-time and not doing the day-to-day and being able to travel anytime you want.
Yeah.
And you've got people who really like their job and stability. Like
Right.
you'll look back and be like, holy shit, I went from 800 with slim margins to 800 with huge margins to 1.5 to 2.5. Like
Yeah.
it looks massive. I mean, so it's
Right.
just keeping that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
And then we'll just help you, just every one of those, you're not doing that many things at once, but when you're doing it, that's what you use me and the course and the group and the events and stuff for, is
Right.
to help you get those things right, especially
Yeah.
when it gets to hiring and training the team and all that. Like you want the strong foundation, you want to recruit the right person, train them right, like
Hmm.
getting it right. So just like you shouldn't use most of the program. You should use like little pieces of it in a lot of depth, one
Yeah.
after the other after the other.
Yeah. 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 That makes sense. So, would you recommend like implementing an estimating software or anything, or
Yeah.
just taking
If
a
you
look at like what I have and changing it?
if what you have now is measurement based, gets
Hmm.
consistent pricing and hits your margins and it's easy to train to someone else, you're good.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great, Jordan. Good
Yeah.
stuff, man.
That's awesome.
Anybody watching, just drop any comments below. Let us know if you like this. Tell me what you got out of it. If you got questions, let me know. And then any last comments from you, my man?
No, I appreciate your time and yeah, thanks for all you do. It's made a
Yeah,
huge difference already and yeah, see how just little tweaks are gonna really change just our
yeah,
family in general. So it's awesome.
yeah, man.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, and building this plan, does it feel like how does it feel to look at a plan that's that simple?
Honestly, I expected to come on here and like have a lot more things to work on. Like just the there's one thing is like it feels very attainable. Like it just means yeah, just a lot more focus in one area
Yeah.
and just the crazy difference that just one area can make. Like that's wild.
It gives you the opportunity to like actually enjoy the process. Everyone says like enjoy the process, like a
Right.
platitude, but it's like,
Yeah.
no, like
Yeah.
you can actually enjoy the process
Yeah.
um, doing it this way. So it's
Yeah. It
taking me
feels a
one step
lot less daunting and yeah.
killer,
Yeah.
man. Well, I'm excited for you.
Thanks.
Yeah, keep me posted. We'll see you on webinars, and yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
doing this too, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Thanks for having
All
me.
right, brother. Have a good
All
one.
right.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. I hope you found it valuable. We make these episodes in the show for you, truly. So your feedback is super valuable to us, whether it's, things you liked, things you didn't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Any feedback you can give us is going to be super helpful as we continue to evolve and improve the show over time. And if you want a copy of the Fast Growth Roadmap for Painting Contractors, which really simplifies the steps you take to building a business, we've got that resource for free for you. Just check the description or the bio where you're watching or listening to this episode, and you can just click and download that for free, and it should help give you a good roadmap for how to build and scale your business like the people that you're listening to on the show. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon.